10 Casino Mysteries That Are Still Unsolved. When it comes to tourist destinations, casinos are simultaneously one of the world's most popular and controversial attractions. People can spend their time gambling for leisure inside casinos, but it's easy to fall into the trap of losing money and putting yourself in financial peril. Given that establishments house millions of dollars and are often tied to organized crime, it's almost inevitable that when a new casino opens, crime rates in the area will tend to rise. Over the years, casinos have been home to their fair share of unsolved mysteries, whether murders, disappearances, or successful heists. 1. The Bill Brennan Heist. In 1992, employee to Stardust Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Bill Brennan walked out with $500,000 and was never heard from since. He reported to his job like he had for the previous 4 years, but that night he pulled off the most legendary casino heist that is still talked about on this trip today. He robbed Stardust for $500,000, and actually got away with it. 23 years later it remains an unsolved mystery. It is the only successful casino heist in monetary value and lack of bringing anyone to justice. It is typically only in the movies that they get away after trying to steal from a casino. This is because casinos have state-of-the-art security systems to protect their VIP guests and high volumes of money. They have invested huge amounts of money in protecting their interests. Real life is not like Ocean's 11. Getting away with robbing a casino is next to impossible. On September 22, 1992, Brennan did not use a gun, a weapon, or threats to get his money. He pulled off the complex heist during his lunch break, perhaps without ever breaking a sweat. The employee then simply reported to work and when he left took $500,000 with him. Officials say that Brennan spent time investigating the holes in the Stardust security system, which stopped him from being picked up by cameras during his heist. This made it next to impossible for anyone to catch him during the crime or right after. In fact, it took several hours for other casino employees to determine it was Brennan who made off with the money. This gave him the time to get away from the scene of the crime and seemingly disappear. Bill Brennan is currently on the FBI's Most Wanted list and the story has appeared on America's Most Wanted and on the crime channel ID Discovery. This is the first story of this type to garner such media and government attention. Of course, since Brennan has yet to be found, the door has opened for conspiracy theorists and internet trolls to take this story to the next level. A popular theory today is that Brennan did not work alone. Instead had a partner or several that helped him. Many think that he disappeared because he was killed by an angry partner unwilling to share the money, or that he had mob ties that allowed him assume a completely new identity, making Bill Brennan walk out of the Stardust and completely disappear. Even more believe that Brennan was able to quickly and quietly escape the country and is living it up in a country that United States officials will never be able to get to him. The most puzzling and fascinating thing about the story is how simple it was. In other heists, masterminds have used expensive equipment to hack the games. He also was able to pull it off without drawing attention to himself. Other heists have involved small increments of money being stolen over time or masked robbers with guns and threats. Brennan is one of only a small group that can ever say they got away with a perfect casino heist. Almost all others have been caught. It seems that Bill Brennan and the Stardust's $500,000 are likely to never be seen again. Will we ever know exactly how this impressive yet simple heist was pulled off? 2. The murder of Terry McClure. On Friday, January 14, 1983, 38-year-old Timothy "Tim" McClure was married in Lake Tahoe with his 62-year-old mother, Terry McClure, by his side. Tim had lived off and on with his mother during his 20s. The two often went out to dinner together and gambled at local casinos. On the night of Tim's wedding, the newlyweds and their parents celebrated by gambling at the nearby casinos. At 10 p.m., Terry said goodbye to her son after he walked her to her car. She was planning to return home to Reno, Nevada, about an hour away. She was never seen alive again. At 6 p.m. the next evening, Tim and his new wife went to Terry's home to visit her. However, she was not there. After calling several friends and relatives, Tim called the police to report his mother missing. 3 days later, on Monday, January 17th, Terry's car was found in a Carson City casino parking lot about a half hour away from Lake Tahoe. Terry was found shot twice in the head in her own car and was believed to have been killed the night of her son's wedding. Authorities found that the keys were still in the ignition, her purse was missing, but her jewelry remained on her body. The next day, police began looking at her son Tim as a suspect in her murder. Circumstantial evidence seemed to point to him as being responsible for his mother's death. However, the Nevada DA declined to prosecute. Tim, along with many of his family and friends, insist that he is innocent and that his mother's killer is still out there. From the beginning, authorities considered Terry's son Timothy McClure a suspect in her murder. When questioned, Tim told police that after saying goodbye to his mother at 10 p.m., he returned to the casino. Since his wife was gambling with his parents, Tim decided to gamble alone for about 2 hours. He then rejoined his wife, and the two went dancing until dawn the next morning. Authorities, however, have been unable to substantiate Tim's or his wife's whereabouts for that night. The couple was also unable to name any of the places that they had been to that night. Tim also told police that 2 days before his mother's body was discovered, he had searched the main highway between Lake Tahoe and Reno for his mother's purse. The authorities found it odd that he was retracing his mother's steps, looking for an item that nobody had known was missing at the time. Tim, however, claimed that his sister had given him the idea to look for the purse. Tim also searched the parking lots of the casinos on his mother's route, looking for her car. He looked through every lot on that route except for one, the parking lot where Terry's body was later found. Tim claimed that a gut feeling kept him from entering this specific parking lot. Authorities were also suspicious of a phone call Tim had made to cancel his mother's credit cards. He claims that he made the call on Monday, January 17th, which was the day that Terry's body was found. However, the credit card company claims that he called on Friday, before his mother even disappeared. Authorities received the memo written by the credit company's employee. It states that on Friday, Tim told them that his mother was deceased. Tim, however, claims that the employee was mistaken. 6 months before she was murdered, Terry took out a $10,000 insurance policy on her life. Tim and one of his sisters were named as co-beneficiaries. Authorities suspect that this may have been the motive for the murder. Tim, however, claims that he would never kill his mother for money. 1 month after the murder, Tim and his wife agreed to take polygraph tests. Both tests indicated deception. Tim claimed that the situation was awkward and uncomfortable, which led him to failing the test. Terry's murder remains unsolved, although Tim remains the prime suspect. Terry's granddaughter has commented that much of the remaining family members do believe Tim killed his mother, and his ex-wife knows he did, but she may be withholding information. 3. The disappearance of George J. Vandermark. In 1976, George J. Vandermark worked as the slot machine supervisor at the Stardust Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. On May 18, the Nevada Gaming Control Board staged an impromptu raid on the casino and uncovered an elaborate scheme which involved skimming over $7 million from the slot machines for the mafia. Vandermark slipped out of the casino during the raid and eventually fled the city. He had lied to the mafia about how much money he had been skimming from the machines and had kept $3 million for himself. Vandermark's son, Jeff, was told by the control board that his father's life was in danger, but they could offer him protection. Claiming his father was hiding in Mexico, Jeff agreed to contact his father and convince him to turn himself in. Weeks later, Jeff contacted investigators and claimed his father was willing to come forward and accept their offer. Later that day, Jeff Vandermark was found dead inside his apartment with a crushed skull. His murder has not been solved. State gaming officials have launched an audit to determine if money was embezzled from slot machine revenue at hotels owned by Alan Glick Sargent Corporation. It was confirmed Wednesday. Jeff Silver, a member of the Nevada Gaming Control Board, said discovery of a slot machine cheating scheme at the Stardust Hotel several months ago led to the expanded audit of Glick's properties. We have discovered some discrepancies, but we do not know what kind of money we are talking about, said Silver. We are not talking about skimming because for that we would have to show management participated. We are looking for the possibility of embezzlement, said Silver. Skimming is a term used when owners skim money from casino count rooms, before reporting the gross revenue to the state for tax purposes. The control board has issued a subpoena for George J. Vandermark, former slot machine manager for Glick, Vandermark disappeared when the state began investigating the Stardust slot machine operation and reportedly is living in Mexico. If he returns, we have a subpoena waiting for him, but our subpoena powers extend only to the state line, said Silver. Vandermark was hired in 1974 by Glick's former top casino executive, Frank Rosenthal. The state denied Rosenthal a gambling license. Vandermark made it clear he did not want to go through the gaming licensing procedure, which delves extensively into personal background. If money were embezzled from a casino count room before the gross revenue were reported to the state for tax purposes, the resort owner still is responsible for paying the tax even if he is not aware an embezzlement occurred at the time. We are interested to determine if the state has more tax revenue coming, said Silver. Glick was first issued a Nevada gaming license in November of 1974, when he acquired the Hacienda Hotel. Later he purchased the Stardust, Fremont and the casino in the Marina Hotel. He has since sold the Marina Casino. He purchased the Stardust and Fremont hotels with Teamster pension fund financing of almost $100 million. The state audit covers a period when all of the slot machine money at Click-owned hotels was trucked across town to the Marina Hotel, where it was counted at once, said Silver. Vandermark at one time was a general slot machine supervisor for all Argent Corporation properties. The state launched a general audit into the Argent Corporation counting room procedures at slot machine procedures when it was discovered some employees were taking money from the slot machine operation at the Stardust Hotel, probably through phony jackpot payoffs. The general audit turned up some irregularities. This is the first time we have come across something like this, and it is probably because of our more sophisticated auditing procedures, said Silver. He said the audit of all the Glick properties and the investigation into employee thefts from slot machine money at the Stardust Hotel were, in effect, two separate probes. He said some Stardust Hotel employees voluntarily have surrendered work cards. Silver said other work cards might be revoked. We have delayed revocation of work cards to determine if sufficient evidence will be obtained involving persons at the supervisory level, said Silver. George J. Vandermark never returned to Las Vegas, but there were verified sightings of him living under an assumed name in Phoenix during the next few months. Sometime that summer, Vandermark vanished without a trace. Reports later surfaced that he had been murdered at his residence by mobsters, who subsequently buried him in the desert. However, no one has been officially charged with the crime, and Vandermark's body has not been found. 4. The disappearance of Trevor Angel. In 2000, 28-year-old Trevor Angel lived in Calgary, Alberta, and worked as a long-haul truck driver, transporting meat and produce between Canada and the U.S. On September 19, Angel delivered a load of beef to Los Angeles before picking up a new cargo of bananas to take back to Canada. At some point during the trip, Angel spoke to his wife on the phone, claiming he hadn't slept in 4 days and was planning to quit the trucking business after delivering one last load. On the morning of September 22, Angel spoke with a dispatcher, which was the last communication anyone had with him. Shortly after, Angel disappeared. His abandoned truck was discovered in the parking lot of Whiskey Pete's Hotel and Casino in Primm, Nevada. Angel liked to gamble and was known for making rest stops at Whiskey Pete's during his trips. The abandoned truck had been fueled up, and nothing was missing from the cargo, but Angel's empty wallet was discovered in the front seat. Over the course of one day, Angel's ATM card had been used a total of 9 times to withdraw his entire paycheck from his bank account. No one knows if Angel himself used the card, but hours after the last ATM transaction, a waitress claimed to have served him some oatmeal inside the casino, which he paid for with pocket change. Angel's family, including his wife Teresa, said Trevor had been struggling with being on the road and hoped that the load would be his last. In September 2000, Trevor headed out for the 3,000-mile trip. He planned on pushing the limit and getting to his destination as quickly as possible. His mom Pat told the Calgary Herald. On September 19, Trevor picked up a load at a meatpacking plant in Alberta. The beef was to be delivered to Los Angeles. Trevor made the trip from Alberta to Los Angeles in approximately 25 hours. Once in Los Angeles, Trevor dropped his load and picked up a load of bananas to take back to Calgary. On the return trip, Trevor stopped at Whiskey Pete's Casino in Primm, Nevada. On September 22, Trevor refueled at Prim and spoke with his dispatcher around 10 a.m. Trevor also phoned his wife Teresa and told her she had not slept in 4 days, the Calgary Herald reported. Not long after that, Trevor's parents, Pat and Jim, received a call saying Trevor wasn't answering calls from his company and GPS showed his truck was still parked in Prim. After getting no response from Trevor, the company reported him missing. 3 days later, Trevor's truck was found in the Prim casino parking lot. Trevor's wallet was found intact inside the truck, but Trevor was nowhere to be found. Trevor's bank record showed that his debit card was used 9 times to make withdrawals until 4 a.m. on September 23. Trevor's entire paycheck had been withdrawn. Trevor's parents headed to Prim to search for their son. They hoped to find him at the casino. They began by searching the casino's restaurant. A waitress said she remembered serving Trevor oatmeal on September 23. At 10 a.m., she recalled that he had paid for his meal and tip with pocket change. One witness reported that seeing Trevor and said that he appeared to be ill. He was holding his stomach and had been found lying in the parking lot, asking for help. Pat and Jim began calling hospitals, clinics and a homeless shelter. The Angels told the Calgary Herald that they began to fear the worst. There were no leads and no one could offer any further information. And 13 years later, there are still no leads. Trevor's family holds out hope that someone out there knows something about Trevor's disappearance. I've had people ask what's worse, the death or the missing. The missing is a little easier because you have hope. If you have no hope, it's the hardest, she said. Trevor is 5'9" and was 170 pounds at the time of his disappearance. He also had a mustache and goatee. He has hazel eyes. Trevor would be 42 years old today. Witnesses also reported seeing Angel in the casino parking lot, looking sick and disoriented. There were unconfirmed sightings of Angel in Texas in December 2001, leading to speculation that he may have staged his own disappearance. However, there are still no answers in this baffling missing persons case. 5. The murder of Jody Bordeaux. Sean Bordeaux grabbed a tube sock from the floor of the bedroom and placed it over a gaping wound in his wife's head. Minutes before, a barrage of gunfire had struck the couple's small house. The house sits on the outskirts of Powhatan, a little town of less than 80 people near the Kickapoo Reservation in Brown County. Bordeaux held the tube sock to his wife's head to stop the bleeding and called 911. Then, he kissed his wife's belly and said goodbye to their unborn daughter. Jody Bordeaux had been 7 months pregnant when she was shot in the head November 21, 1997. Rumors have circulated. The names of 3 or 4 people who may be responsible keep surfacing. Some people on the reservation say they know who killed Jody, but they are afraid to come forward. Law enforcement officials have a possible motive, but it can't be proved. The gun used to shoot Jody hasn't been located. There is a veil of secrecy in the community, Jody's family members say, and the case remains unsolved. Sean and Jody Bordeaux met in Nebraska while Sean was attending the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. They were married October 7, 1995, in South Dakota. Sean returned to South Dakota after his wife's death. He lives on the Rosebud Reservation in Mission, St. He serves as a state representative and works at Sindicalska University. At their wedding, Sean's family members asked him to serve as marketing director of the newly established Golden Eagle Casino near Horton. Jody also was offered a position. The couple worked hard, Sean said, often clocking 18 hours per day. Jody worked her way up to a supervisory role. She did a lot of the hiring and firing, Sean Bordeaux said. It looked like she was the bad guy. Jody had to fire one man who was late to work. A few weeks later, a grievance was filed by the man against Jody, Sean said. Jody was fired because she was 1 hour late for a week straight, Sean said. Jody had been traveling to a nearby town each morning to get fertility treatments. However, she made up her time, her husband said. She was fired, and she was heartbroken, Sean said. After 2 miscarriages and fertility treatments, they found out Jody was pregnant with a girl. The couple moved on, and Jody concentrated on preparing for the birth of their baby girl. One night while Sean was at work, Jody called him. She was concerned, Sean said. She thought someone was outside. I thought it was a raccoon. Jody Bordeaux's mother, Candace Smith, who lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, said Jody also had spoken to her about telephone calls she received late at night. Jody would answer and someone would hang up on her. That went on and on and on, Smith said. It scared her. A few days before Jody's death, the couple drove to Topeka. They ate at Red Lobster and went clothes shopping for the baby. On November 21st, Jody and Sean were watching television. They had been discussing bills they had to pay. At 12:40 I heard a pop right over the top of my head, Sean said. Earlier in the week, 2 lights had popped. When I heard this pop, I looked at the lamp. I saw smoke. It was dust from the bullet. However, Jody and Sean didn't know what was happening. I heard what sounded like a 20-pack of fireworks, Sean said. We looked at each other. Jody ran toward the bedroom, and Sean ran to the kitchen. I literally ran through bullets, Sean said. The chair I was sitting in had a bullet hole right in the center. I get into the kitchen and my dogs are spinning circles. Sean went back to the living room to look for Jody. I went back to attend to my wife, he said. I could see her feet in the doorway of the bedroom. I got to her, and I noticed she was hit above the eyebrow on the left side. I didn't realize what was happening, but he covered her wound with the closet thing he could find, a tube sock, and called 911. I thought, oh my God, Sean said. I grabbed the phone and called 911. Then I noticed the wall was riddled with bullets. They literally tried to cut us down with that gun. Brown County Undersheriff Randy Link remembers working the slaying of Jody. It was sad, he said. Link and Brown County Attorney Kevin Hill said the case remains open, and a few tips still trickle in. A few years ago, an inquisition took place and several people, who may have been involved in Jody's death, were interviewed. There are 3 potential suspects. Sean, as well as others, says alcohol played a factor in the slaying. Law enforcement officials determined that the homicide may be related to employment issues, and Jody may have been killed by someone who might have an axe to grind, Hill said. Brown County handled the case. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation assisted, and since then, a $5,000 governor's award has been offered. Sean said he tried to get the Federal Bureau of Investigation involved. However, while Sean said the tribe considered his house on the reservation, new boundaries at the time showed the Bordeaux couple lived off the reservation. Therefore, the FBI said it wouldn't be able to help. I think the FBI would have stirred things up, Sean said. Authorities, as well as Jody's mother, don't think Sean had anything to do with his wife's death. I think he was a very caring husband, Smith said. The police told me right from the beginning that they knew who did it. Smith remembers getting the call from Sean right after Jody's death. All he said was, "She's gone," Smith said. He was crying. I let out the most blood-curdling yell. I screamed and dropped the phone. I cried for weeks. Jody and the couple's unborn daughter, Jordan Shea, were buried in Lincoln, Nebraska. Smith and law enforcement officials said the Native American culture may be keeping some from speaking out about the homicide. Right after his wife's death, Sean packed up his belongings and went home to South Dakota. They shot up my family, Sean said. I had to leave. They have blood on their hands. Those people will always have problems. Sean and Smith continually kept in contact with law enforcement. Sean called on a weekly basis. After I would put the phone down, I would cry, he said. Smith is frustrated because she hasn't heard anything from officers or detectives in a long time. I had to call them, she said. They never kept me in the loop. I think they completely handled it all wrong. The television show Unsolved Mysteries ran a segment on Jody's death in 2001. Although a few people shared tips, it didn't lead to arrests. Nancy Bear, who served as a Kickapoo tribal chairperson at the time, on the show asked people to come forward. Bear was contacted for this article. She said she believes the same thing today. However, she didn't want to speak any more about the case. There are at least 2 other slayings that are tied to the reservation that remain unsolved. KBI Special Agent Mark Malik said it is important for people and the media to continue to think about unsolved homicides in hopes of generating new leads. Cold cases, especially those related to unsolved homicides, are never closed and are currently assigned to KBI agents, he said. When new leads are generated by whatever means, they immediately become the priority of the agents assigned, especially after a substantial amount of time has passed. It is our hope that any publicity encourages those that were possibly reluctant to speak early in the investigation will now do so. Even if someone believes the information they have is not necessarily relevant, it could be that missing link or key to bringing closure to the victim's friends and family. Hill, Link, Smith and Sean want justice in Jody's case. There are definitely people out there who have information that could lead to charges being filed, Hill said. I encourage them to come forward. Life continues for the Sean and Jody's mother, but they think of Jody often. Sean has had children, but he will never forget his unborn daughter, Jordan Shea. Smith misses her daily phone calls with Jody. She misses Jody's smile and kindness. I think of her every single day, Smith said. We were so close. Jody was so loved by so many. Everyone misses her. I hope they're brought to justice before I die. I want to look them in the face. I would tell them they should be ashamed. She was the most beautiful person. 6. The disappearance of George Tsoulakis. George Tsoulakis liked to stay out late playing cards and pool in the smoky Greek social clubs in Hartford, but the former pizza parlor owner always went home to his wife and 3 young boys in Marlborough. On February 23, he called his wife at about 11:30 p.m. to say he was heading home. That was the last time he spoke to any friends or family. For the record, Bernard Bartenstein owns and runs Corvette Center of America on South Street in Coventry. The body shop and car sales business remains open and has never closed. George Tsoulakis, whose disappearances nor dealings with the business, the shop's status and Tsoulakis' affiliation with it were incorrectly reported in a current story on page B1 on May 3. Creditors say Tsoulakis was a shifty businessman and con artist who left the area, and possibly the country, to avoid at least $200,000 in debts. Some 13 years old, but family members who knew him as a doting father fear he has been harmed. Just about everyone in the tightly knit Greek community in the South End has heard Georgie is missing. It was known he owed money to just about everyone, but if he planned to leave, he did not tell anyone. Everybody knows he had financial problems, but nobody knows how serious it is, said Akaspos, manager of the Greek-American Sportsman Club on Maple Avenue. He owed me $300 to $400 that I gave to him to help him. When Bose last saw him, Tsoulakis did not seem depressed. He was playing cards and watching TV as usual, Bose said. He was normal like every day. He no say anything to nobody, Bose said. Only 2 weeks before he was reported missing, Tsoulakis told an acquaintance that he was going to take care of his outstanding bills and get back in the pizza parlor business and run it right, the friend said. Some of his friends say Tsoulakis may have left home in shame, after losing his businesses and in fear of going to jail on criminal charges of writing bad checks and failing to pay taxes. Tsoulakis liked to gamble in small card games in the social clubs and most recently at Foxwoods High Stakes Bingo and Casino in Ledyard. Some speculate that he had illegal gambling debts. Twice since his disappearance, people have told police they saw him at the casino, where his red Fiat sports car was found abandoned and covered with snow in mid-March. State Police Dent Thomas Wakely of Troop K in Colchester has been looking for Tsoulakis, showing his picture around the casino and talking to people in the Greek community. He has gotten a few leads but has not been able to prove Tsoulakis is alright. One woman told Wakely she saw the stocky Greek native on February 29 at the casino. She remembered him because he was at the money wheel and he won 40-1 odds. Wakely said. She didn't know how much he won or how much he bet. Casino employees also thought they saw him there in March with 2 other men, shortly before his car was found, but state police haven't been able to confirm either report. The casino has no record showing how much he may have won, police said. Police found a voucher that appeared to have his signature, but film from security cameras of that time was erased, Wakely said. Tsoulakis' family and friends say they cannot believe he would leave without telling his family. His wife, Vasiliki Tsoulakis, who calls herself Betsy, is worried. Her husband's brothers in Florida and relatives in Greece have not heard from him. Betsy Tsoulakis has been forced to move from her Marlborough home because she could no longer make payments. She and her sons are staying with relatives in Springfield. The Greek community in March raised $1,950 for Betsy Tsoulakis and the children, Bose said. George Tsoulakis' creditors are also worried that they'll never get their money. I still get bills for him, said Tom Cunningham, who opened a pizza parlor in Manchester where Tsoulakis' restaurant had been before it closed in 1990. The largest single debt Tsoulakis left was for $147,000 in back taxes to the State Department of Revenue Services, said A.J. Janskitz, a department spokesman. He had not paid his taxes on his pizza parlors. Tsoulakis was given a break when a judge granted him leniency with a probation that would have erased some of the charges if he made restitution, Janskit said. Last June he was told to pay $5,500 in restitution over the 2-year probation and then slowly pay the state the rest of the debt, Janskit said. But Tsoulakis hasn't been paying. If caught, he will be rearrested. He also faces charges of failing to pay other taxes and failing to appear in court. But his attorney, John Barbieri of New Britain, said Tsoulakis was not the sole owner of 2 of the Pizza Express stores. Tsoulakis owned the stores in Manchester and West Hartford, but those in Wethersfield and Glastonbury were owned by other people, Barbieri said. The state claims a lot of things, but have yet to prove it, he said. After Tsoulakis was arrested on the state charges last summer, an employee stole everything from his Manchester store while he waited to be freed on bond, Barbieri said. There was no way to pay people back. I think he's not a very good businessman, and he has a very good heart, Barbieri said. He helped people out, but the people owed money, including former employees, do not see Tsoulakis that way. Benito Lagana said he remembers the first time Tsoulakis drove up in his Jaguar and swaggered into his store. Tsoulakis persuaded Lagana to rent his building in Wethersfield for a Pizza Express restaurant. He said he owned 15 places in Florida and 6 in Connecticut and he was as big as Domino's Pizza, Lagana recalled. The guy is something else. I never met anyone like him in my life. He makes people believe he has the money in his pocket. He could fool anyone for a little while. For the record, Bernard Bartenstein owns and runs Corvette Center of America on South Street in Coventry. The body shop and car sales business remains open and has never closed. George Tsoulakis, whose disappearances nor dealings with the business, the shop's status and Tsoulakis' affiliation with it were incorrectly reported in a current story on page B1 on May 3. Lagana said Tsoulakis duped him out of about $10,000 in rent and repair fees. He tried to take Tsoulakis to court over the past couple of years, but Tsoulakis never showed. 8 of Tsoulakis' former employees complained to the State Department of Labor that he did not pay them. The claims are each for less than $1,000, Judy Barden, a Labor Department spokeswoman, said. Until Tsoulakis pays the money to the state, the employees will not get paid. He is their one hope, she said. At least a half-dozen creditors have sued Tsoulakis for their money, but most were unsuccessful. V&M Food Distributors Incorporated of East Hartford filed suit in Superior Court in Hartford for $18,000 in payment for produce, paper goods and detergents Tsoulakis bought from V&M when he owned Pizza Express. He was the type of person to influence easily others who didn't have any knowledge of his past activities, said Vasilios Haralampis, who owns the family-run business. We do not have any chance of getting the money. In 1990, the Patrick Media Group, a Scranton, PA, advertising firm, performed for Tsoulakis $4,483 worth of advertising services. The company sued for the money but has yet to be paid, according to court records. Tsoulakis also owes bakeries, electricians and other businesses that have not sued him. He also owes a tile store more than $5,000. The pizza business was not Tsoulakis' first business venture. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, he ran Apollo Painting Incorporated in Hartford. He still owes creditors for that enterprise. Dick Marr of Marr's Paints in Farmington said Tsoulakis has owed him $1,000 for more than a decade. He's never paid me a penny, not one penny, Marr said. It really burned us up. Jim Banfield of United Paints in Wethersfield said Tsoulakis owes more than $1,000. Most recently, Tsoulakis began a venture called the Corvette Center of America in Coventry, where he bought cars at auction and resold them. That business also has closed. Tsoulakis was also far behind on payments on his 2-story house on Jones Hollow Road in Marlborough. John Cristiano, the owner of the house, let Tsoulakis stay as long as he made regular payments, said Mark Rosenblatt, Cristiano's attorney. After Mr. Tsoulakis disappeared, Mrs. Tsoulakis had no ability to make payments, Rosenblatt said. He was the main breadwinner. He left his wife with all the bills and all the obligations. Cristiano gave Betsy Tsoulakis $3,000 for moving expenses, and she agreed not to file for bankruptcy, a process that would have cost Cristiano even more, Rosenblatt said. Still, Cristiano wound up losing about $15,000, which included $12,000 in town taxes George Tsoulakis had failed to pay, Rosenblatt said. But Betsy Tsoulakis does not believe her husband would leave her intentionally. She said through Barberi that her husband was a good father to his boys, aged 5, 8 and 11. He spent a lot of time with them, letting them play in the kitchen of his restaurants as he made pizzas to go. She said that George was a very good father and a very good husband. In spite of his financial problems, he tried to make them happy, Barberi said. 7. The Horizon Casino Heist. It was a casino caper that even Danny Ocean would have been proud to pull off. In the wee hours of November 9, 2003, a masked, armed man slipped in an employee entrance of Horizon Casino at City Front and made off into the cool, crisp pre-dawn blackness with about $60,000. That was the first and only robbery of a casino that we've had, said Vicksburg Deputy Police Chief Bobby Stewart, who headed the department's narcotics division in 2003. In the more than 10 years since the daring heist involving arson, 2 bomb hoaxes and a threatening man with a pistol, no one has been charged, and the police have not named any suspect. Stewart said, "The theft, walk in, demand cash, walk out, is much simpler than ones concocted by Ocean, the fictional con man and casino heist mastermind portrayed in Ocean's 11 by Frank Sinatra in 1960, and in the classic film's 2001 reboot and sequels by George Clooney. The cool calculation and cunning that went into Vicksburg's unsolved casino caper rivals that of Sinatra and Clooney's on-screen antics. The robber obviously had cased the joint. He entered Horizon, which later became Grand Station and folded in 2012, through an employee entrance near the second-deck cash cage by holding a revolver to the head of a slot attendant, who stepped outside on a break. He told employees to cooperate because there were 2 bombs in the building, and police carried out a shoebox wrapped in duct tape that was hidden in a loading dock near where the robber fled into the darkness. A similar tactic was used in Tunica the same year, when a woman wearing a wig set a gift-wrapped package on the counter of casino, and told the cashier to hand over money or she would detonate the bomb hidden inside. That package was nothing more than an empty honey bun box, police discovered after she fled with about $60,000. The Horizon robbers took it a step further though. About an hour before the robbery, the robber or an accomplice called in a bomb threat to Rainbow Casino, now Lady Luck, 4 miles south. At the time, the 2 casinos were the farthest apart in Vicksburg. At the same time, the 5'9" masked man wearing a Dallas Cowboys jacket was robbing the cash cage at Horizon. Firefighters were battling an arson blaze at the former Jet Elementary School. "We feel they were done as a diversion. It was all the same time," Stewart said of the connection between the robbery, bomb threat and fire. The Mississippi Gaming Commission assists in casino robbery investigations, but casinos are treated as any other business, so jurisdiction falls to the local police or sheriff's department, said Alan Godfrey, the commission's executive director. Casino robberies, despite how many movies there are about them, are few and far between, especially in Mississippi, he said. They are very rare. That's not to say people don't commit crimes at casinos or cheat at gaming, Godfrey said. I would imagine the deterrent is there is so much surveillance. The Gaming Commission does not keep statistics on the numbers of casino robberies, but 2003 was a particularly bad year for the house's profits in Mississippi. In a little more than a year spanning from late 2002 through 2003, the 11 casinos that were along the Mississippi River were hit with 25 robberies and attempted robberies, more than any other gambling spot in the country. Casino officials estimated the losses at $1.4 million. The bulk of the robberies were reported in Tunica County, and arrests were made in all but the Vicksburg case. The state put an extra highway patrol substation in Tunica because of the robberies, Godfrey said. That cut down on it a lot. There's not but 1 or 2 places to come out from there. Las Vegas, which had 150 casinos during the same time span, had 14 robberies. Atlantic City, with 12 casinos, had 3. No heists were reported that year on the Mississippi Gulf Coast or in Louisiana. 8. The murder of Gaylan Thompson. On May 3, 1996, a 56-year-old woman from Idaho was spending a weekend in jackpot gambling with her husband and another couple. The next night, her husband and the couple went back to their hotel rooms. leaving the woman to continue gambling in Cactus Pete's. That's the last time she was seen alive. Gail and Bobby Thompson of Middleton, Idaho, had been married for about 8 years. They traveled to Jackpot with another couple on May 3 to gamble and do some square dancing. As the friends would later tell detectives, Gail liked to play the nickels. But on May 6, after a seemingly uneventful weekend, Gail's body was found in the lot between the Horseshoe and Old Star Hotel on the west side of U.S. Highway 93. According to Detective Dennis Jernigan, who is handling this cold case for the Elko County Sheriff's Office, she was found about 50 yards from the highway. Her husband and the couple reported seeing her the evening of May 4 at Cactus Pete's. Jernigan said the friends and Bobby wanted to retire for the evening, but Gail was set to go for some more gambling. Bobby woke up on May 5 and Gail was not by his side. Bobby and the couple looked in all of the casinos for Gail, but never found her. Then, Bobby got the idea Gail might have gone home. However, the car they used to drive to Jackpot was still in the parking lot. Nevertheless, the friends needed to get home, so Bobby and the friends went back to Middleton, but not before Bobby called the sheriff's office to inquire about anyone seeing his wife. Nobody had heard anything about a woman of her description, but would be on the lookout. Once home in Idaho, Bobby found Gail was not at their home. Only one message was on their answering machine, a friend of Gail's. About the time Bobby was checking his message, Jernigan said deputies had made their own discovery back in Jackpot, the body of Gail Thompson. May 6. Bobby went back to Jackpot to look for Gail and contacted the sheriff's office, who informed him of the discovery. Gail was 56, weighed 170 pounds and was 5 feet, 8 inches tall. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She wore eyeglasses. Gail was discovered face down in the lot with her sweatshirt still on, but with her pants and underpants pushed down by her knees. Her purse, eyeglasses, a folded $20 and numerous blood droplets were found around her body. Some shoe impressions were found near the body, but were never linked to anyone. Original crime scene photos show Gail's head and face had been beaten to such a degree that she was greatly disfigured. There were fractures all around her skull, including both sides of her face. Jernigan said although Gail's body was posed and put in a manner in which one might think she'd been sexually assaulted, a medical examiner determined no such action had ever occurred. And yet her purse, ID, the folded bill and her wedding ring had not been taken, bringing further question as to what the motive behind the killing could have been. Detectives' investigations found there was some activity on Gail's credit card and $40 had been taken the night of May 5 from an ATM machine. Bobby later reported $500 was missing from their checking account, but no suspect was ever identified. Nobody interviewed at the casino remembered seeing Gail with anyone else after Bobby and their friends had left, and surveillance footage from that night hasn't shown Gail so far as Jernigan has seen. Bobby Thompson had later moved to Oregon and died in 2000. According to Jernigan, Gail had been his 5th wife, and had been married for about 7 years and been together 8 years. One of his wives had died from cancer, another from a car accident, and the other 2 lived in California and Indiana. Bobby's average lasting marriage was 8 years, but one lasted 12 before the wife died. He had several children. Jernigan said in the initial reports, the man who accompanied the Thompsons told detectives he thought Bobby seemed underconcerned for someone whose wife was missing in the time between discovering she was missing and Bobby being told Gail had been found dead. It's just an odd thing, Jernigan said. Now that Bobby's deceased, it could make things difficult. The friends who accompanied the Thompsons to Jackpot told detectives there seemed to be a little animosity between the Thompsons stemming from Gail wanting to move back to Kansas in order to be closer to her family. Bobby had no desire to make such a move, but Bobby would marry for the 6th time just 3 months after Gail's murder. Friends who had been close to the Thompsons noted Bobby started dating within a few weeks after his wife's burial. He and his new wife would later move to Caldwell, Idaho. Jernigan said he may resubmit some of the physical evidence recovered from the scene for DNA analysis. It was believed Gail had been beaten with a rock, but Jernigan suspects otherwise. No drugs or toxins were detected in Gail during the medical examination. Her last meal was ham with peas and carrots, typical casino fare. A large percentage of such disfigurements are done by boyfriends, husbands or other relatives. There's some sort of personal connection. Whoever did it was extremely agitated, Jernigan said. Whoever did it was way mad. 9. The disappearance of Jean Moore. On April 6, 1992, 59-year-old Jean Moore and her 70-year-old fiancé Al Henderson left their home in Apple Valley, California for a vacation in Laughlin, Nevada. The couple was set to return home on April 9, but according to Al, Jean wanted to play her lucky slot machine at the Flamingo Hilton Casino one last time, as she won $600 there the day before. Al says they drove to the Flamingo Hilton at 9:30 a.m., but could not find a parking spot. So Al dropped Jean off at the front entrance, gave the car to a valet, and then turned the valet's claim ticket over to Jean. Al told Jean he would take a cab back to the Colorado Belle, the hotel they were staying at, and she could use the claim ticket to pick up the car and meet him there at around 11:45. Al tried to hail a taxi, but could not find one, so he went back into the casino to meet Jean. However, when Al was surprised to see someone else playing Jean's lucky slot machine, when this person left, Al decided to play the machine for 30 minutes, but Jean never returned, so Al left the casino and hailed a cab to the Colorado Belle. Al played blackjack there until checkout time at 12:15, but Jean never showed up. Al then took a cab back to the Flamingo Hilton, and was surprised to discover that his car was still parked there, and the valet never saw Jean. After failing to find Jean in the casino, Al reported her missing and spent the next several days in Laughlin, distributing missing persons with the words "possible amnesia" written on them and offering a $25,000 reward for information. He even paid $1,200 to charter a helicopter to fly over the desert area surrounding Laughlin, but nothing was found. For some reason, Jean had left behind her purse, jewelry and engagement ring in the hotel room before she went to the casino. Police became skeptical of Al's story when they checked the Flamingo Hilton's security tapes, and found no sign of Jean in the surveillance footage on the morning she disappeared. The footage did show Al driving up to the front entrance and walking into the lobby, but did not show him giving the valet's claim ticket to Jean, or playing Jean's lucky slot machine during the 30-minute window he claimed he was there. Al believed police were looking at footage of the wrong slot machine, but casino security confirmed it was the correct one. When the case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries in 1995, Al changed part of his original story during his interview, now claiming he dropped Jean off at a side entrance of the casino before driving around to the front and leaving his car with the valet. Al then, he said, walked into the casino, found Jean and gave her the claim ticket. Investigators also began wondering if Jean even made it to Laughlin to begin with. Aside from a waitress who said she served Jean and Al at a coffee shop on April 6, police could find no other witnesses who remembered seeing Jean in Laughlin over the next 3 days. Another witness also claimed she saw Al and Jean at a gas station near Apple Valley at 4:30 p.m. on April 8, and Jean apparently told her she was on her way to Laughlin. However, phone records show that Al made calls from Laughlin at 3 o'clock and 6:59 that day, and since it's a 3-hour drive to Apple Valley, it seems impossible that Al could have been at the gas station at 4:30. The 6:59 phone call was made to Al's bookkeeper, who said she spoke to Jean on the phone, and that Jean was in good spirits because she won $600 earlier that day. Al Henderson died in 2001, but no evidence was ever found to implicate him in Jean's disappearance. It's worth noting that Al and Jean had been together for over 20 years before she went missing, but Al didn't propose to her until December 1991. Both of Jean's children from a previous relationship were interviewed on Unsolved Mysteries. They said they never liked Al and claimed he had a habit of putting their mother down in front of other people. However, there's no other indication that this was an abusive, unhappy relationship. Al was also a millionaire and had nothing to gain financially from Jean's death, so if he killed her, the motive is unknown. 10. The disappearance of Agnes LaRue. 23 years after the mysterious disappearance of a casino heiress in Nice, her former lover is being investigated for her kidnapping and murder. Jean Morris Agnew always denied playing any role in the disappearance of Agnes LaRue, last seen driving out of Nice in a Range Rover on October 30, 1977. He claimed she had organized her own disappearance, after salting away several million francs that she received from the sale of her interest in the Palais de la Méditerranée casino. She must be living it up in Marrakech or LA, he told friends at the time. Agnew claimed to be in Geneva on the day of LaRue's disappearance, and had an apparently watertight alibi. The testimony of Françoise Losser, another woman with whom he was having an affair. As a result of Losser's statement, in 1985, the case against Agnelet was dropped, but in October last year the former lawyer's alibi collapsed when Losser, who subsequently became Agnelet's wife, withdrew her statement. "I gave a false alibi for Jean Maurice Agnelet," she told judges. Now investigating judges have ordered the reopening of one of the murkiest and intriguing criminal cases in recent French history. It is one of those affairs that has everything: sex, the mafia, gambling, betrayal, a whiff of murder and the stink of money. Everything, that is, apart from a corpse. The story started in May 1977, when Leroux tried to withdraw her inheritance from the Palais de la Méditerranée, one of Nice's two biggest casinos. Her mother, Renée, a reportedly tough businesswoman who directed the casino, refused. At this point, Leroux took the advice of Agnelet, who recommended her to sell for 3 million francs, about £300,000, her right to vote on the casino's administrative council to the notorious Jean-Dominique Fratoni, a mafia emissary, who was at the time implicated in a corruption scandal at the rival Roll Casino along the Promenade des Anglais in Nice. Indeed, Fratoni was eager to buy out the competition and he was assisted, if unintentionally, by Agnelet. What Renée Leroux didn't know was that, inside the Palais de la Méditerranée which she ran, Fratoni had his Trojan horse in the shape of Agnelet, recalled Le Figaro last week. When Fratoni bought up Leroux's vote on the administrative council, that put Renée in the minority and enabled him to take control of the casino. At the time Nice was enthralled to organized crime. Even the flamboyant mayor, Jacques Médecin, felt the need to have links with the mafia. "Avoid the region of Nice," wrote Graham Greene, at the time living along the coast in Antibes, in a polemic entitled J'accuse, reserve of some of the most criminal organizations in the south of France. Fratoni is now dead, but Nice police belatedly suspect him of having used his new acquisition to launder mafia drug money. During the summer, Agnelet and Leroux put most of the money Fratoni had paid them into joint accounts. Later, after repeated transfers, the money wound up in accounts in the names of Agnelet and his other mistress, Françoise. In early October, Leroux twice attempted suicide. According to reports, Agnelet tried to stop her only half-heartedly, but by 26 October he was promising her a trip away from Nice in order to rekindle their relationship. 4 days later, Leroux disappeared. Only her mother seemed concerned and, in March the following year, reported her disappearance to the police. Detectives searched Leroux's flat and found a note: "Sorry, I'm at the end of my road. I stop here. I want Maurice to look after everything." Questioned by police, Agnelet told a lie, saying he scarcely knew her, but when detectives searched his flat they found a photocopy of Leroux's farewell note and keys to her flat. Agnelet told detectives he had been in Geneva when Leroux disappeared and the following day had gone to Paris to attend a conference of the League of the Rights of Man. Swiss police could confirm only that Losser stayed in a Geneva hotel on the night in question but could not say with whom. In Paris, the president of the League said Agnelet had not attended the conference. Yet, in 1985, an investigating judge closed the dossier on the case. Only Renée Leroux, Agnes's mother, kept a candle burning. Despite having been betrayed by her daughter, she wrote books accusing Freemasons of hushing up the affair. Her stubbornness seems to have paid off. Late last year, investigating Judge Anne Vellier re-interviewed Losser, who had been living in Canada as Agnelet's wife. Then Agnelet had an interview with Vellier. "My client has come back to France to put himself in the hands of the judges," said his lawyer. "For him this is an opportunity to show his total innocence." Agnelet told Vellier he had spent the night of October 30, 1977, with Losser and produced a bill from a Paris hotel for the following night. His lawyer said he wanted to confront his estranged wife. Leroux's body has not been found and claims that she has spent the past 23 years living it up in a foreign hotspot have not been confirmed. They seem unlikely. After all, Leroux saw little of her inheritance, enough to buy the Range Rover in which she was last seen. Her mother believes she was murdered by a gold-digging former lover. Agnelet has always wriggled out of it. But today the inquiry is being led with much more energy than before, she said. Only one problem persists for Mrs. Leroux's hopes of seeing Agnelet put behind bars. Even if police do find her daughter's body and Agnelet is found guilty of murdering her, he cannot be convicted because of France's 10-year statute of limitations on capital offenses.